Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Hello there, folks. How you doing? Okay, so today I'm doing a real quick video about Daniel Holzclaw. I wanted to go ahead and just at this point in my coverage stop and just take a look back at the first two accusers, because it's important to understand for me, and I think Brian Bates and most of the people that are into this and looking into this and stuff would agree that it's important to understand the differences between the first two accusers as opposed to all the ones that come after, basically. So here's what I'm getting at with that is that you've seen in the coverage of the first two accusers of Daniel that I've done that there were clear issues with some of their statements and everything, and two things that Janie Liggins said were proved to be untrue. Other things kind of ended up coming out and proving to be a little bit untrue as well later. And then with Terry Morris, obviously you guys saw me cover that, where at first it's in one place, then because that doesn't match the AVL data of Daniel's patrol car, suddenly later on it ends up getting moved to a completely different section of Oklahoma City on a completely different day, 2 weeks prior to the original day that it was supposed to have happened, and all these various things that happened with Terry Morris. And like I say, her claims of hers, like she unzipped her zipper and claimed that her vagina could be seen if her zipper was open, which many of the ladies in the chat, when we got to that part, were there to go, yeah, that's impossible. So, you know what I mean? There was issues with their statements. Now, why am I stopping at this point, really, to say something? Well, because right now we're at the point where these were the first two accusers who kind of came and had made claims all on their own without police having to prompt them in any way. And there were clear issues in their stories. But obviously we see Rocky Gregory was going ahead and manipulating Terry Morris into giving a narrative that he could use. And it's very clear if you watch my previous video about, the allegations of Terry Morris, you'll see that that's what's going on. I want to say that in this, absolutely 100%, I do not take any pleasure in having to look into the truthfulness of these ladies' statements. I do not enjoy this at all. Okay, in fact, I want to go one step further is to say I don't really blame these ladies for what happened. Okay, I really don't. It was up to these detectives to sniff out the BS in this, and they were not doing that. They were refusing to do their job because they had some kind of other agenda going on. Mainly, they saw this as a way to make their careers. And that's the way it would appear. Because they're ignoring the inconsistencies in these first two accusers' statements, and they're ignoring the fact that everything Daniel says checks out. Everything that he has said has proven to be true. They're ignoring that, and they're moving forward. So I want to show you one more thing right here about Janie Liggins, because we went over this in my previous video, but I just saw when I was watching Michelle Malkin's coverage. Michelle Malkin Investigates, her Daniel in the Den 2-part series, and I was watching that, and there was something very, very interesting in there that I thought I wanted to go ahead and show everybody here real quick, because I think you got to use some common sense, obviously, and before I play this clip, or before this clip starts, I want you guys to understand Janie Liggins claims that Daniel made her put her hands on his hood while he frisked her and patted her down. Daniel claims he never patted her down. Okay? Now, let's see which one of those statements rings more true.
There was no DNA in her mouth, but she said that he did not ejaculate.
She also said at one point her hands
Yes.
were on the hood?
On the hood, yes.
And what were the results of that?
They didn't get fingerprints.
Alrighty there, folks. So you just heard what Kim Davis said, right? That Janie Liggins, the original complaint, the original accuser, had claimed that Daniel told her to put her hands on the hood while he frisked her. Okay? Daniel claims that never happened. All right. Well, here's the hood, folks. Here it is. You see there's dirt, and you can see where water, marks had run. So this thing hadn't been washed in a long time. There was apparently maybe a rain that happened at one point. Now, I have not heard one peep that there was any kind of rain or anything. I haven't heard that mentioned, but maybe that will be coming. But as far as I know, this is just what the car looked like when he pulled over Janie Liggins, and this is what it looked like when they got it from him. And you can see this level of dirt. If she had placed her hands on this hood, we would see where her hands displaced some of this, dirt and stuff on the hood. Certainly we would have seen handprints where some of this dirt was lifted, and we would also see it over at the back where she claims that the oral, forced oral sodomy took place over by the back door, that he put his hand up on the roof to try to block the view of oncoming cars. A number of cars passed by, and like I said, here, if you look at this, I mean, this hood is dirty, and if Janie Liggins had her hands anywhere on this hood, we would certainly have see palm prints. And the fact that I have heard no mention of any kind of rain that day so far, is to me telling. But also, even if it had rained, there would still be likely to be some DNA.
Why do you think that is?
Because hundreds of people touched the cars.
Hundreds of people were touching this hood? No, I don't think so.
The weather, you got to keep in mind, Holzclaw's car was a pigsty. It was absolutely nasty. And a lot of times, like when we go into a house for a burglary, and it's just nasty, you never get results from that.
Okay, so did you get that? Now I'm going to first of all point out she did not say it rained to explain why there might not have been DNA or fingerprints. No. What did she say? She said because Daniel had trash on the passenger floorboard of his car, that would have nullified any DNA on the hood. She just said that. She said that like she thinks it's reality. Like she said that with authority. She said that with full confidence. So, what can you make of the rest of her statements that she makes with full confidence, when you can obviously see that one there is bull? She will spout some absolute lying bull, and she will say it with authority and confidence. And like I say, that one right there is ridiculous. Suggesting that the trash on Daniel's passenger floorboard could somehow nullify or remove DNA from his hood, or fingerprints, or somehow stop Janie Liggins' hands from making prints in all of that dirt that's on the hood. If somehow the trash on Daniel's passenger floorboard is to explain that, no. All right, now we're going to go and we're going to look at a little bit more about Daniel's interrogation and how Daniel was very much of the opinion of, yeah, go ahead and test everything. When they challenged him with the video, he was like, yeah, when they're like, we're not going to see your penis, we're not going to see this and that, we're not going to see her boobs, we're not going to see your penis in her mouth, we're not, all these things that they kept asking him because they had this video that they had, but they were trying to intimidate him, even though they, the video wasn't clear. They were trying to intimidate him, and he was just like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I want to see the video. Yeah, in this, Daniel has just been like, all, he never looked shocked when they were trying to challenge him with things. Like when they brought up the sane kit, when they brought up the video, he was just like, oh, no, you're not going to see any of those things in there. Like matter of fact, and so we're going to see a little bit of that right here.
I want DNA, I want everything, I want to get it done.
Based on a single 2-hour interview, the detectives diagnosed Daniel as a monster.
What are some of the adjectives that you'd use to describe Daniel Holzclaw?
Narcissist.
Psychopath.
Evil.
Yeah, well, I would make the argument that Kim and Rocky are the ones that fit the description that they just gave of Daniel. I think it's them. Judging with the problems with the first two accusers and the things that didn't match up and didn't work out, and yet they plowed forward, and going on to then create a self-fulfilling prophecy with other women that Daniel had contact with in his job as a law enforcement officer, mainly African American prostitutes with drug, convictions as well. And they went back and were basically giving these women an opportunity to say that they had been raped. And so, obviously, what was in the news? Daniel Holzclaw. And so they were saying Daniel Holzclaw raped them. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And yet they were still having to browbeat some of them into doing it. Which becomes, clear with, like the, I think her name is Deshandre Levy, I think. Deshandre, I'm pretty sure was her name. Anyway, she's the one that says at the end of her interrogation, like, is this good evidence? And he's like, oh, well, I don't know. You tell me. She's like, even if he didn't rape nobody, okay? When she's making comments like that, I mean, that's what kind of things in this case these investigators were ignoring. And so this is why I say I don't fault the women here. I don't. I fault the investigators for fueling this and creating this. I mean, it was them. It's their fault. They're responsible. Because they created this shitstorm, for lack of a better word. That's what it is. Going around. I mean, the whole self-fulfilling prophecy aspect of this is just shocking. Of the way that they went piling on the victims. When the claims that the first two were making had serious problems. Yeah. So, I will say one more thing about when I was watching Michelle Malkin's, two-part series here, Daniel in the Den, which I will be leaving the links to below, by the way, for you guys to go check it out on your own. Another thing was interesting was the fact that she got into talking about the DNA in this case, and talking about how the DNA, because there's a big to-do about the DNA that was found on Daniel's zipper. Okay, so she actually gets a DNA expert on, and folks, those of you who watch Andrew Whitehead Making Two Murderers would recognize this fellow. Okay, so I may be trying to get in touch and create another video here in the near future to talk about the DNA in the Holzclaw case and everything. So I thought that was really interesting. So you guys might be that might be coming, so you can look forward to that. And like I say, it's just this is the important part of the case where you can see they were departing from the accusers who had come to them, and now they were venturing out into looking into Daniel's past of all of the African American prostitutes with drug habits or drug convictions, and they went and started asking those women if they had been sexually assaulted by an Oklahoma PD officer. And obviously with everything that was in the news, they were fingering Daniel. Self-fulfilling prophecy that they went and created for themselves. And it becomes even more of a problem when you realize the problems with the first two accusers and the stories that they told, and that the evidence didn't hold up and didn't match up and didn't follow their story. Folks, Janie Ligon's SANE kit was taken very, very soon after she claimed this happened. Okay? Very, very soon. There was not very long. It was a couple of hours, from what I understand. About a couple, maybe 2 to 2.5 hours from when she claimed it happened until they did the SANE kit. Okay? When it's that quick, there's generally going to be a trace of the attacker. And usually will come from pre-cum or from skin cells off of the flesh of the attacker's penis. But within 2 to 2.5 hours, it's usually there. So that's other things here that are a problem. The evidence isn't there with the first 2 victims to warrant going and looking for more victims, because it looks like the first 2 are not really on the up and up. In fact, Rocky Gregory seriously, literally has to spoon feed what he wants Terry Morris to say to her, and it's completely different than the original story that she told, which she told with consistency. When he breaks her away from that, she ends up, after that, she can't tell the same story twice. He interviews her again, and breaks her away from that story, and she tells one story, and then when she gets to court, she even changes more aspects of the story. When she gets to court, the story after that doesn't stay the same, it continues to change. So these are the problems with the original Accusers, and that's why I wanted to stop at this point and go, this is the point where we go, okay, there was problems with the first 2 Accusers, they ignored that, and now they're moving forward by creating this list that they all try to deny exists now, but it's clearly mentioned in many of the reports. You can't deny the fact that this list existed, but it was a list of African American women with a history of prostitution and drugs that they created, that Daniel had contact with in the past. And that's where they went forward after the clear problems with the first 2 Accusers against Daniel. So this is how you spot the earmarks of a wrongful conviction, folks. This case has them in spades. So many of the earmarks of a wrongful conviction in the Daniel Holzclaw case. It's freaking ridiculous. And I just heard another one today that just blew my freaking mind about Daniel's attorney. But we'll get to that one at a later date. So, all right. That's about it for this one, folks. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.